Let us ask you something. Would you believe if we told you Africa is about to shake up the world? Yeah, Africa. The same continent that's been overlooked and underestimated for centuries. And it's not doing it alone, it's teaming up with BRICS. You've probably heard of them, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and many new nations are on the line to join. Together, they're flipping the global script in a way that's making the old powers nervous. Sounds wild, doesn't it? Well, stick around, because we are going to break it all down. And this isn't just some wishful thinking. Africa and BRICS are doing things right now that could change the entire game. Let's talk about it. All right, let's dive even deeper into this big picture. Africa isn't just another continent. It's the continent when it comes to untapped potential. Think about this. It's home to over 1.4 billion people. That's more than Europe and North America combined. But here's the real twist. This isn't just any population. It's the youngest in the world. The median age is 19.
Well, surprisingly, it is in the dictionary. A youthquake is an important social or political change, one that is triggered by young people. Say young voters oust a long-serving politician from power. That's a youthquake. Many experts say a global youthquake is coming, and its epicenter is Africa. Most of the world, especially richer nations, are getting old. Meanwhile, Africa is young as ever. Just look at these numbers. The median age in Africa is just 19. Here in India, it's 28. In the US and China, it's 38.
19. Let that sink in for a moment. That's an entire generation of innovators, builders, and dreamers. Millions of young minds with fresh ideas, ready to shape the future in ways the world hasn't seen before. Unlike aging populations in Europe or Japan, where the workforce is shrinking, Africa's youth are bursting onto the scene at a time when global demand for workers, innovation, and problem-solving is higher than ever. You see, this is a generation that's digitally connected. They've grown up with smartphones, social media, and access to information that their parents could only dream about. They're not just looking for jobs, they're creating them. In Nigeria, for instance, tech startups are springing up faster than anywhere else in the world. In Kenya, young entrepreneurs are using mobile money platforms like M-Pesa to launch businesses in remote areas. This isn't just about numbers, it's about energy, ambition, and a hunger for change. And then there's the land. Africa holds 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. Let's break that down for you. While other regions are running out of room to grow food, Africa is sitting on the planet's last great agricultural frontier. If managed properly, this land could feed not just the continent, but the entire world. Take a look at the global food crisis. As populations grow and climate change disrupts traditional farming, the need for fertile, productive land is skyrocketing. Africa can become the breadbasket of the world. Countries like Ethiopia and Rwanda are already transforming their agricultural sectors, exporting everything from coffee to flowers. Imagine the potential if Africa's full agricultural power was unleashed. And now, let's talk about the real treasure beneath the surface. Africa is sitting on 30% of the planet's mineral reserves. We're talking cobalt, lithium, gold, diamonds, you name it. These aren't just shiny rocks. They're the building blocks of the future. Cobalt and lithium, for example, are essential for electric cars, renewable energy tech, and the batteries that power everything from smartphones to solar grids. In a world shifting rapidly to green energy, Africa's resources are no longer just valuable, they're critical. The Democratic Republic of Congo, for instance, produces nearly 70% of the world's cobalt. That's not a small piece of the puzzle, it's the cornerstone. But there's more. Africa also holds untapped reserves of rare earth elements, used in everything from wind turbines to high-tech military equipment. With global demand for these materials expected to skyrocket in the coming decades, Africa is positioned to become the supplier the world desperately needs. Yet, here's the thing. This isn't the first time people have called Africa the future. Decade after decade, we've heard the same story. So, why hasn't this potential been fully realized? Why do so many of Africa's resources, talents, and opportunities remain untapped? To answer that, we need to step back and look at the barriers that have held Africa back for so long. And it's a story you need to hear. Let's be real here. Africa didn't just fall behind, it was pushed back. And not just a little. For centuries, it was held down by systems designed to strip it of its wealth and leave nothing behind. It started with colonialism, that brutal chapter when foreign powers carved up Africa like a pie at a feast. Gold, diamonds, oil, rubber, you name it. If it was valuable, they took it.
That 6% is crazy when this is $100 billion industry. And they come from you. We've seen it with Congo, which is very unfortunate.
Raw materials, yeah.
With the raw materials, with the children working. You see it's in phones, it's in the iPhone, you know.
Like, it's literally an every
But
other
it's
device.
poor.
Yeah.
But in terms of money, of minerals
Resource, yeah.
and resources, it's the richest in the world. Things like that. So they should have been done that.
Yeah.
But now to show that they're serious, they've been importing intellectual knowledge from people. They've been importing, inaitangwaje kuleta, for example, not brain drain, bringing people from outside with the knowledge and power and whatever on how they can really now bring this manufacturing thing to life. Scientists, researchers, they've been bringing them in.
Okay,
So I'm really interested to see how that goes. But you see, imagine like Kenya, we are getting actual nini from Ghana as opposed to Swiss.
Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. But the exploitation didn't stop at resources. The colonial powers took people too. Millions of them were forced into slavery and shipped across oceans. Entire communities were torn apart, leaving scars that are still visible today. And when the colonizers finally left, they didn't just pack up and go quietly. Oh no, they made sure Africa didn't have the tools to rebuild. Look at the borders they left behind. They didn't draw them with care or consideration. They slapped them down with rulers and pencils, dividing tribes, families, and communities. It wasn't about creating functioning nations. It was about making sure those nations were too fragmented to stand on their own. And if you think colonialism was the end of the story, think again. What followed wasn't freedom. It was a new kind of control. Africa became the playground for global powers, each one trying to stake a claim. That's where the IMF and the World Bank entered the picture, armed with something they called structural adjustment programs. Sounds helpful, right? Loans to help struggling nations get back on their feet? Yeah, no. These programs came with strings attached, and those strings turned out to be chains. Here's how it worked. In exchange for loans, African governments were forced to slash spending on public services. Schools, underfunded, hospitals, neglected, roads, bridges, and power grids, forget about it. And then came the privatization demands. Industries that could have fueled Africa's recovery were sold off to foreign corporations for next to nothing. It didn't stop there. Africa was also locked into trade agreements that made absolutely no sense for its long-term growth. Picture this. You're exporting raw materials, gold, coffee, oil, for peanuts. But when you need finished goods like machinery or electronics, you have to buy them back at sky-high prices. It's like running on a treadmill that only speeds up the harder you try to move forward. And then there were the narratives, the stories the West told about Africa to justify all of this. For decades, they painted Africa as a problem that needed fixing. They'd talk about poverty, corruption, and conflict, but conveniently leave out the systems they put in place to create those very issues. It wasn't just insulting, it was strategic. By focusing on what was wrong with Africa, they hid their role in making it that way. But here's the thing about narratives. They don't last forever. And right now, that old game is falling apart. The rules the West wrote, they're being rewritten. BRICS has entered the picture, and they're not here to play by someone else's playbook. BRICS is offering something Africa hasn't had in a long time, real partnership. They're not here to exploit, they're here to collaborate. They see Africa not as a problem to fix, but as a powerhouse to unleash. And that's where things get exciting. The tables are turning, and Africa is finally getting the tools it needs to rise. So, let's talk about how BRICS is changing the game and why this partnership is so different from anything we've seen before. BRICS isn't just another group of powerful nations looking to expand their influence. It's an alliance that actually gets Africa. And that's a huge deal. Unlike the West, BRICS isn't swooping in with lectures, conditions, and a checklist of what Africa should do. They're coming in with partnerships, real partnerships that recognize Africa's potential and respect its sovereignty. So let's talk about one of the biggest areas where BRICS is making a difference: infrastructure. And this isn't just about building roads and bridges, it's about building futures. China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) is the perfect example of this. You've probably heard of it. It's one of the largest infrastructure projects in modern history. And Africa? It's a key part of that vision. China isn't just tossing money at random projects, they're carefully planning railways, highways, and ports to connect African countries and the rest of the world. Take the Kenya-South Sudan Highway, for instance. Before this project, South Sudan was landlocked, isolated, and struggling to access global markets. Now, they're plugged into the global economy, able to move goods efficiently and at a fraction of the cost. This isn't just a road, it's a lifeline. Farmers, traders, and businesses in South Sudan can now reach buyers they couldn't even dream of before. But it's not just about China. India is stepping up in a big way too, particularly with renewable energy. Picture this: villages in rural Africa, places where electricity has always been a luxury, now powered by solar panels funded by Indian initiatives. This isn't just lighting up homes, it's lighting up futures. Kids can study after dark, small businesses can operate longer hours, and hospitals can run equipment that saves lives. And then there's Brazil. Their expertise in agriculture is nothing short of transformative. In countries like Mozambique, Brazilian experts are teaching farmers how to grow more food with fewer resources. It's not just about boosting yields, it's about ensuring food security for millions. And let's not forget Russia. While they often fly under the radar in these conversations, they're playing a critical role in Africa's energy sector. From building nuclear power plants to setting up natural gas pipelines, Russia is helping provide the stable, reliable energy Africa needs to fuel its growth. But what really sets BRICS apart isn't just the scale of these projects, it's the approach. Instead of imposing their own rules and expecting Africa to follow, BRICS works alongside African nations, listening to their needs and priorities. And nowhere is this more evident than in how they're handling trade. You see, for decades, African countries have been forced to rely on the US dollar for international transactions. This might not sound like a big deal, but it's massive. Trading in dollars makes everything more expensive and leaves economies vulnerable to fluctuations they can't control. BRICS is saying, enough of that. Instead, they're promoting trade in local currencies. This might seem like a small tweak, but it's revolutionary. It gives African nations more control over their economies, reduces costs, and shields them from the volatility of global markets. Imagine an African exporter trading directly with a Chinese buyer in their currencies. No middleman, no unnecessary fees. That's what BRICS is enabling. And it doesn't stop there. BRICS isn't just investing money, they're investing in people. African universities are partnering with institutions in India, Brazil, and China to train the next generation of leaders, engineers, and entrepreneurs. This is what makes BRICS different. They're not just building infrastructure, they're building independence. When students in African countries are learning cutting-edge tech from Brazilian experts or mastering renewable energy solutions with Indian scientists, they're gaining skills that stay on the continent. This isn't about short-term fixes, it's about laying the foundation for long-term growth. But if there's one thing that ties all of this together, it's infrastructure. And when we say infrastructure, we don't just mean physical structures like roads and bridges. We mean the kind of systems that connect people, create opportunities, and transform entire economies. So let's take a closer look at why infrastructure is the backbone of this transformation, and why it's the key to unlocking Africa's potential. Imagine you're a farmer in Uganda. You've got a truckload of bananas to sell, but the nearest market is 50 miles away, and the road is nothing but dirt and potholes. By the time you get there, half your produce is spoiled. That's been the reality for millions of Africans. Now, picture this. A brand new railway system connects your village to major cities. What used to take days now takes hours. Suddenly, you're not just selling bananas locally, you're shipping them across borders. That's what BRICS-backed infrastructure projects are doing. The Tanzania-Zambia Railway, for example, isn't just moving goods, it's connecting entire economies. Farmers, traders, and businesses are all benefiting. And it's not just about trade. Infrastructure transforms communities. A reliable road means a child can get to school safely. A stable power grid means hospitals can keep life-saving equipment running. These are the kinds of changes that ripple across generations. But here's the kicker. Infrastructure attracts investment. When businesses know they can rely on roads, railways, and electricity, they're more likely to set up shop. And when that happens, it paves the way for something even bigger. Industrialization. All right, let us hit you with a question. Why does Africa export cocoa but not chocolate? Why ship out raw cotton but not finished textiles? The answer is simple. The global system has been rigged to keep Africa as a supplier of raw materials. But BRICS? They're flipping the script. Through industrial parks and special economic zones, BRICS is helping African nations move up the value chain. Imagine factories in Nigeria making car parts or assembly lines in Kenya producing smartphones. This isn't just a dream, it's happening. And the benefits are massive. Jobs are being created, skills are being developed, and wealth is staying within African borders. Plus, there's something deeply empowering about seeing made in Ghana or assembled in South Africa on products. But here's the thing. Industrialization can't thrive without stable finances. And that's where BRICS is making another bold move, changing how Africa trades. Let's talk money. For decades, Africa's been stuck trading in US dollars. Sounds fine, right? Wrong. It's expensive, it's unpredictable, and it puts too much power in the hands of foreign banks. BRICS is changing that. By promoting trade in local currencies, they're giving African nations the freedom to trade on their terms. Think about it. No more getting hit by dollar fluctuations. No more relying on a currency controlled by someone else. And this isn't just about governments. It's a game changer for small businesses too. Imagine a South African entrepreneur trading directly with a Brazilian supplier using their currencies. It's faster, cheaper, and puts control back where it belongs. But even the best businesses need one thing to succeed: energy. And that's a challenge Africa is tackling head-on. Without electricity, nothing works. Factories don't run, schools can't teach, and hospitals can't save lives. But here's the twist. Africa isn't just solving its energy problems. It's becoming a global leader in renewable energy. Take solar farms in Morocco. These aren't just lighting up homes, they're powering industries. Or Ethiopia's hydropower projects, which are bringing electricity to millions. And here's what's exciting. With BRICS' support, Africa isn't just following the renewable energy trend, it's setting it. By investing in sustainable solutions, the continent is proving that green growth isn't just possible, it's profitable. This brings us to the big question: is Africa leading this transformation, or is it just along for the ride? Here's the truth. Africa isn't just a participant in this story, it's the main character. Countries like South Africa are shaping BRICS' agenda, ensuring African priorities aren't just included, but prioritized. This isn't about following orders, it's about setting the course. From pushing for fair trade to championing renewable energy, African nations are proving they're not just part of the conversation, they're driving it. This partnership isn't just transforming Africa, it's transforming the world. So Africa and BRICS are rewriting the rules of the global game. Together, they're building a future where Africa isn't just surviving, it's thriving. So are you ready to watch the underdog become the hero? How soon do you think BRICS and Africa will change the world? Will this transformation face hurdles? Let us know in the comment section. Can Africa change? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.